Hey guys, welcome back to Trail North Podcast. I am your host, John Dowd, and with me today I have Mark. Is it Kathrein or Kathrein?
Kathrein.
Kathrein. Gotcha. Got your intro here. So Mark has been making holsters since 2016 and is the owner of CKM Holsters. He has personally been carrying concealed weapons for over 30 years, and he has fired tens of thousands of rounds, participated in many hours of professional training, and has worked with professionals in law enforcement and military through USPSA. He creates custom projects to suit the unique needs of clients, many of whom include local police. He is also active in the Kydex community, having worked with other, sometimes much larger companies to collaborate designs. His business is located just outside Missoula, Montana. He is also a truck driver, vintage Hot Wheels collector, and a motorhead. How's it going, Mark? Thanks for joining me today.
It's good. Going good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Dude, it's you were one of the first people I kind of chatted about before I started this podcast up.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things actually that kind of like pushed me into it, because we had talked about, was you and I worked on a couple just odd projects together. I know I've given you some stuff that you're like, where is this going? What kind of thing are we creating this time, John?
Yep. You challenge me sometimes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
No
good
worries.
though. That's good.
Yeah. So it says you've been you making holsters for, we said, what, over 30 years. What got you into doing Kydex in the first place?
So I used to be very active in the USPSA practical shooting, and I got a wild hair one year to improve my weekend shooting, and I wanted to shoot a year with left hand only, which needed a left-handed holster. And there was supposed to be a gentleman here in the area that built holsters, and I paid for a holster up front through Selway Armory. And about 8 months later, I still hadn't heard from him. And in the meantime, I had started watching stuff on YouTube and started following a couple of one gentleman in particular, which was Philly EDC at the time. Now he's Filster, big manufacturer now. He was just starting out, and watched him. He was doing some how-to videos, and I thought, well, I'm going to make my own left-handed holster, which I
That's
did.
crazy wild hair to go left hand for a season.
Yeah, and it just kind of took off from there. People saw it, and then I built myself, a right-handed holster, and friends were needing holsters and said, "Hey, can you build me one?" And I thought, "Yep, I can probably do that." And it kind of took off from there.
Did you ever get that one that you originally purchased and didn't hear 6 months later or anything?
No, I ended up getting my money back from Selway
Oh,
Armory. They refunded
no.
it. So never did hear from the guy. They said they hadn't heard from him in quite a while either.
Wow.
So,
Well, crazy.
yeah.
So I had mentioned that you worked on some collaboration projects. Who's and I want to actually let's go this way. You told me when we first started chatting and I started giving you kind of wacky projects. You said something really interesting about the Kydex community, and that a lot of it is open source.
Yeah. So when I first started, almost all the makers were, I guess you would call them, boutique manufacturers. And everybody has always been willing to give people hints, give people help, um, give them ideas, send them down a certain path. And that's something that's always impressed me about the Kydex community. And most people still are, even some of the bigger uh, manufacturers that are more commercial now than just um, one-off or custom, are
Mhm.
still pretty cooperative. Yeah. So that's something I really like about the community. They have group purchases on small parts that go into holsters, whether it be eyelets or screws or Chicago posts or belt loops or things like that you can get in on, and the more you buy, the cheaper it becomes. So,
Sure, sure.
yeah, yeah. It's a really interesting community of makers or benders, as we call ourselves, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Kydex benders. Yeah.
And so we'll get into the process of how they're made here in a little while. But so if you, like with me giving you these weird projects, are those like that prompts you to call other makers and kind of see how they're doing it and kind of look at their stuff? Or how does that collaboration usually go?
Um, Anymore, I kind of have an idea of how I'm going to try and proceed. But if I get stuck, there's a couple of guys um, that I reach out to now and again that are they probably shouldn't have time to respond to me, but they always do.
Hmm.
Um, so it's yeah. There's a couple of big ones that I've worked with. One is Alameda Holsters,
Hmm.
and the other one is Faltech. Um, I think it's Faltech Tactical is what he goes by. He's up in Maine. He actually had talked at one time about putting on individual classes with people who are wanting to get better at the craft. And I don't know if he's actually participated in that or not, if he's actually followed through with that. But um, I think his name is he goes by Iggy, um, but it's a I think it's Ignazio Falcone is
Hmm.
that's his name. He's a good guy.
Very cool.
He puts out videos, a couple videos every week on how tos and things like that. He's active in that community
Sure.
also.
On YouTube, he puts them out.
Yep, yep, YouTube, yep.
How are there so many makers in this line of work? How does the market handle that?
So there's actually room for thousands of Kydex holster makers and leather holster makers. If
Hmm.
you walk into any gun store that's a sizable, they have a sizable selection, they would need an entire department to carry holsters for every weapon they sell with every attachment you can put on them, whether it be lasers or weapon lights. And they just don't have uh, the floor space or the capacity to do that. So
Yeah,
guys like
yeah,
myself and the other makers, if you have a say you have a Glock 19 and you want to put a TLR 7 on it, well, you can find a holster for a Glock 19, but it's pretty tough to find a holster for a Glock 19 with the TLR 7 weapon light on it. So that just opens up the door for us to do that. So there's
sure.
how many millions, hundreds of millions of weapons in the
Yeah,
country. So there's plenty of room for just about everybody, and that's why it's so open source. Is everybody pretty much realizes that
sure.
they
Yeah, well,
understand
and
that there's
yeah, most people try to get, like more than one holster for their gun anyways. I mean, it's not something that I think people, buy one and are done with. Well, some people
well
are, but
if you have if you have more than one weapon, you invariably have a box of holsters somewhere in your house that you've tried
yeah,
and discarded or yeah, it's yeah. And more sometimes handguns are like potato chips, like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one.
right.
I know I have that problem,
Yeah, yeah.
drives my wife
I-
insane. So
Right. I
I
think a
think
lot of us have that problem.
I think you have that problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do people specialize in certain combinations or certain markets, certain weapon platforms for the holsters they make?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure they do. I mean, the bigger makers now, the guys that are really commercial, they have a pretty good selection on their website, but there's only a certain number of weapons you're going to make a holster for, especially once you get commercial, um, and have employees. You have assembly line type manufacturing, um, so there's a core set of typical handguns. You're not going to have a lot of guys that are making stuff for, say, like a Chiappa Rhino, or um, and as soon as I say that, then somebody's going to pipe in and say, "Oh, I know
Yeah,
so and so makes a Chiappa Rhino holster," but that's kind of how it is. When the bigger you get, the narrower your focus of. I mean, retail is retail. You can't cater to everybody in retail. You cater to a core demographic or a core set of weapons, and kind of go from there.
sure. And we should probably say up front that it's not just guns. I mean, there's Kydex holsters for knives and OC cans and grenades and everything you can think of. There's, somebody's made a Kydex holster for.
Um, Copenhagen cans,
Yeah.
magazines. There's an outfit out there um, that actually made a tampon holder
What?
and did really well with it. Sold thousands of them. So
What?
yeah, you can do radios. You can do.
Was that in the craze where people were thinking that you could take a tampon and use it to stuff a bullet wound or something?
Yeah, it might have been, but they sold a lot of pink ones.
Well,
So just a little holster, I guess, to carry around your necessities. So,
yeah. Huh,
tourniquet kits.
yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff.
What do you think the craziest one that I mean, I don't know if it's one of my projects, but the craziest thing that you've had to make a holster for?
Um, well, the craziest weapon I made a holster for a guy who was going to carry it as a daily carry in EDC was for a Luger,
Oh,
a World War II Luger, which that's a fun one to make because you look at the surfaces on it and it is not.
yeah.
It's not an easy gun to mold Kydex to, but um, another one of the a really tough project I had was a guy who wanted to have a plate that carried his for the field that carried his butchering kit, bone saw, hatchet, um,
Oh,
and three knives on a plate that uh, sat behind his backpack, which that was that was uh, that was a tough one because of all the different heights and different. There was a lot of Kydex that had to be moved, and Kydex moves a certain way, and there's certain ways it doesn't like to move, and that one was frustrating. I went through many iterations of prototypes for that before we finally got it to work.
wow. Oh, you
Yeah.
did get it to work. Wow.
Yep, yep. But it
That's
was.
crazy.
That's why I don't have any hair. Was
That's
that particular project?
right. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff on a single holster to
Yep,
make.
yep.
Um, so let's talk about what is Kydex? Why do people choose it over leather? Why is it so popular nowadays?
So Kydex is a thermoplastic. It starts out in just flat sheets, and it's very durable. It's easy to care for. You can wash it in the dishwasher. You can wash it with soap and water, just warm soap and water. Um, Leather is a great medium to work for in holsters. I am a big fan of leather holsters. I like the way they look. I like the way they feel. I like the way they smell. But to really care for a leather holster, it takes a lot of work. Um, it takes saddle soap, and you have to be diligent about cleaning them. Um, and leather is almost always, there are a couple makers out there now that have lined leather with Kydex to give it the positive retention, but leather is a friction fit.
Sure.
Kydex is a positive click fit. You know, a good Kydex holster, the weapon should click into place with an audible click. Um, it and it doesn't break down. I mean, you can go on the internet and look at guys who are carrying inside the waistband with a high quality, at one time leather holster that's just worn down over time and gotten creased or what have you, and they go to get in their car and shoot themselves in the butt or shoot themselves in the thigh because the leather eventually weakened enough where when they bent or had movement that the trigger was touched. Um,
Hmm.
really doesn't happen with Kydex. Um, when you don't have to worry about it wearing, it'll break and you'll
Yeah.
know that it's broken. It doesn't happen very often. I've had one holster that broke that made it. Well, I've had two now. One was a crazy type situation um, with a guy that I know pretty well. That's in the protection game. Um, and he's a lunatic. So that holster was bound to break at some point, but I've only had
Okay.
one other holster that broke um, through kind of weird wear. So it just doesn't happen. Um, multitude of colors, multitude of designs. Um, it's easy to make a custom holster for weapon lights or lasers. Leather doesn't. That's harder to do, you know.
Sure.
And you get good definition of the weapon, so they make kind of, let's say, cool holsters. You know, you can see the outline of the weapon. Holsters, leather holsters, they try and hand bone them and they get kind of that, but nothing like Kydex.
Sure. I'm going to pull up some photos real quick. You just mentioned a multitude of colors. Um, and you have a number of options that you show people that come in looking for projects. Um, let's see, I've got a better one here. Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Actually, I did not realize there were so many options. And you were talking about how some of these are like, I guess it's just like, in the camo world, in hunting, you've got different patterns that are copyrighted or whatever. It's the same thing's true, it sounds like, in Kydex, right?
Yep, Kydex is actually a registered trademark, and I should mention that. Um,
Hmm.
it used to be used generically, but Kydex itself, if you say you work in Kydex, you're supposed to have a trademark on it when you mention it in your writing. Um, somebody as small as me doesn't have to worry about that much, but some of the bigger makers now are having to put, when they say they have a Kydex holster, they have to show the trademark on it because it's a Japanese firm that actually came up with Kydex. Um,
Wow.
and there's other options out there that people will work with. Bolteron is a big one. Um, just another thermoplastic. Um, behaves a little differently at certain temperatures, but is also a very high quality material that people use. And I have made holsters in, well, I haven't made one in the fluorescent yellow, but I've made it in the fluorescent pink. I've made it in red. I've made them in blue. I've made them in that carbon fiber type stuff. So I guess it's hot pink is what it is. I've actually done a hot pink holster.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. There's like an unbelievable amount of options there. Um, so obviously some colors are cheaper than others. So when you make, let's start from the beginning to the end. Like if somebody like me comes and says, "Hey, I want this holster this way, whatever." Is it kind of a conversation like, well, maybe that's not possible or practical? Um, and also then you got to get into the conversation about like price. Like start there. What's that conversation usually look like?
So yeah, that's what it is. So the first thing they start out is to tell me what they're looking for. I have had holster um, requests that I've refused to do because they're not going to be safe. Um, deep concealment where it's down below the waistband or things like that, really strange, where the entire gun's below the waistband. Um, talk about the draw, what they're going to use it for. Is it going to be daily carry? Is it going to be a range gun, range holster? Is it going to be concealed carry? Um, right hand, left hand? What kind of attachments they want? What kind of attachments the weapon has? And then we kind of build price from there. And then solid colors are one price. Any of those solid colors you saw. When you get into the prints, then we have to look at see like Cryptek patterned camouflage is fairly expensive compared to black, brown, ranger green. So you have to add that in. It just kind of goes from there. I really try and figure out their experience level, how long they've been carrying the gun, how they're going to carry the gun, when they're going to carry the gun, because that's all going to go into what I recommend uh, for the customer.
Sure. Now, as far as like the designing goes, it's kind of boggles my brain when you're, especially for like inside the waistband type stuff. IWB. There's all kinds of words thrown out. IWB, OWB, like drop leg and offset drop leg, all this stuff. But looking at it and figuring it out from a layout perspective boggles my mind, because some of like the position of how it's going to be in there and the way, and like I said, we'll later get into how they're made. But how do you visualize just having made so many, or how do you visualize how that's going to have to be laid out and everything to line the light up, to get it to cant at the right angle, all those different pieces?
So part of it is that I've been doing it so long. I still get surprised on occasion, but it mainly depends on the customer. So I really try and ask the questions of the customer. What are you going to do with it, and how are you going to do it, and what is your, have you had training? Do you know an actual draw stroke? And I have some people that I recommend they go to training, um, and I'll give them a basic belt holster, and then when they get some training, some professional training, then they can come back and we can talk more about what they're going to need. But and it's just you have to look at their body type. You have to look at um, different things about them, and a lot of people know exactly what they want,
Yeah.
and they're going to tell me what they want and how they want it to sit, and I can over time I just have an idea of how it's going to set up. But there are
Sure.
a lot of times that even after they leave, and I'm going to start a project, I scratch my head for a while and go over the whole conversation, and then it seems to just come together at some point for me. But I trash a lot of holsters, honestly, over
Yeah.
the years.
Yeah.
When I get it done and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this isn't going to work, and call the customer and go over my concerns, and sometimes they come back and we talk about it again in person, and sometimes they're like, okay, that makes sense, and this, and I make a recommendation as how we should change it, and we change it. But
Yeah.
I have just in my shop right now stuff that I haven't thrown away yet that is I thought I had a great idea, or I thought me and the customer had a great layout, and yeah, it's in a pile
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
with scraps,
Well, and size is a consideration, right? Because the sheets that you get are only so big, or can you get bigger sheets, or how's that work?
So I order my sheets uh, 2 by what is it? 2 feet by no 12 by 24. That's right. 1 by 2 is what I order most commonly. But you can order sheets all the way up to 4 foot by 8 foot.
Wow.
Uh, and I have done that in the past, but it's very it's hard to work with because you have to cut it down, and that's a big piece to be cutting down um, in my shop. If I had, if it was a 4x8 sheet of plywood and I was a carpenter, no big deal, but
Sure.
it doesn't cut that way. So I order 1 foot by 2 foot. They sell them 8x8, 8 inches by 8 inches, 1 foot by 2 foot, 2 foot by 4 foot. Um, so yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. My camera likes to cut off on me for whatever reason. So trying to mitigate that issue. So the other, after what you were just talking about, I guess we can jump into kind of the process now. So you've kind of developed a design, you've got the color, the everything. I'm going to pull back up our photos here. Um, that's one of my favorite patterns, that one there in the middle.
Cryptech. Yeah.
Yeah, the expensive one.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool though. So we've got a couple options there. So that's kind of a key machine right there, right?
Yep. That is a vacuum press. It's a membrane vacuum press. And then I have a membraneless vacuum press behind that, the silver one. And then I also have we call it's a book press is what it's generally called, but the in the Kydex industry, the guy who developed it and put out plans for everybody else to build one, it's called a coffee bum press. And that was his
Hmm.
handle in the Kydex vendors forums was coffee bum. Um,
Huh.
if you ever watch a video of him, he's always got a cup of coffee. So, and that's just a book press. That's for a fold over holster or a taco holster. So there's basically two kinds of holsters. There's a two-piece holster or a pancake is what they call it, or a taco holster or a fold over, which is one piece. So on the right and the left are one-piece holsters, and in the middle is a two-piece holster and a really old two-piece holster. Early on in my
Yeah.
bending career. So um, that is a two-piece holster there, also the Cryptech
Gotcha.
pancake. It's just two pieces, two halves that sandwich the gun in between it, whereas a fold over folds around the gun. Typical inside the waistband is the fold over or taco holster, and um, sometimes they're called a combat holster. They can also be worn outside the waistband with a different attachment.
Gotcha. Now, do you ever do those? I don't know what exactly you call them. It's like the thing that just goes, because essentially what you need in a holster is to cover the trigger guard, right? And so they have, for safety wise, they have the ones that go right over the trigger guard, and that's it for,
Yep,
super low profile. Do you make any of those?
I do. Yep, absolutely. Yep. I
What
made
are
one for my
who,
neighbor's wife.
I was going to say, who's the customer that gets that more often? Do they do it? And I have a question about those too, we'll get to, but who's your customer for that more often than not?
So generally it's ladies, and a lot of times they do it for purse carry inside their purse. Um, so you can put a lanyard to it, and they make a number of purses now that have a loop or something in the bottom of the purse, and you tie the lanyard to the purse, and the gun can float around in there with the trigger covered in a
Yeah.
safe manner. And when you need, you reach in and just pull it out. The trigger only holster stays in the purse, and the weapon is presented and ready to go.
Why do you think it's more often women that choose those for their purse instead of, because you would think, like, a lot of guys might pick one of those for, or anybody really that would just want something really, really low profile. But why is it ladies that usually pick that one? They have
Well,
more room in a
a
purse.
lot, not, and I'm not trying to disrespect any of the female shooters out there, but they don't tend, they carry off body more often, I believe, than men. Um,
Interesting.
So whether it be in a purse or a fanny pack, I mean, there's still plenty of men that use fanny packs. That's another good
Yeah.
um, option for a trigger guard holster or a trigger holster um, is in the fanny pack, because you don't want, or even pocket carry. You can tie the lanyard to a belt loop, stuff the whole, like for ultra compact Ruger LCP, or a tiny Keltec, if you don't want to wear a holster. Deep pocket concealment, which is, I don't know that I'm a very big fan of that, but tie the lanyard to the belt loop, and as you pull the gun out and present it, it pops off, dangles, and you can present the weapon that way. Um, it's not a hugely popular type of, we're going to call it a holster, trigger holster,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
there
yeah,
there are uses for them. There are legitimate times when it works out really well. You certainly don't want a small handgun, um, especially some of the uh, polymer handguns that don't have active safeties, um, floating around in a purse or a pocket or a backpack. Um,
sure.
but if you have a trigger holster on there or a trigger guard, then that makes it safer. Um,
Yeah,
That's not a type of carry for everybody, but there are plenty of people that do it. So it's an option you have to offer.
sure. Um, so let's get back to the process. There's the vacuum press there again. I've got a zoomed in photo here. I'm looking for, there's your little tiny shop. There's
Yep.
one kind of in the process. I'm looking for
Yep.
one with the vacuum. That's kind of one half of a two piece, isn't it?
Yep. Yep. That's a top half. Yep. So
Yeah,
those are
there's,
generally what they call an 80/20 holster.
okay.
So,
So that's the bottom half of it.
yep. Yep.
Did you
That's the
ever do
bottom half.
the little toaster oven to heat?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do
Still
you heat
have
it
one.
now?
I
Oh,
use
really?
it. I use a t-shirt press. Um, it's just it's better because it keeps the Kydex flat, even if it gets over hot. If Kydex gets to a certain temperature, it will start to crinkle and curl up.
Hmm.
And the t-shirt press doesn't allow that. So you can push the temperature of Kydex higher, which gives you better definition for the holsters.
Um,
Kydex is all about definition, more or less. Um, but I still have a toaster oven. It's under my t-shirt press, and it gets used once in a while.
why would you
So
use one over the other? Why would you go back to the toaster?
um, I usually use my toaster if I am in the middle of um, so I take my Kydex out of the heat press, lay it on that curved jig you saw that's in that picture right there. That's a curved jig to give the holster a little bit of curve to it so it hugs the hip better. And sometimes when you put the top piece on, you may get a wrinkle, or you're hurrying too much and you get a fold in it. And by the time you realize it, it's already starting to cool. So I will throw that into the toaster oven because Kydex has a memory. And when you heat it back up, all that definition of the weapon goes away.
Hmm.
It goes back to its original state of a flat sheet of plastic. And I still use the toaster oven for um, to correct mistakes and salvage a piece of Kydex that otherwise would be thrown away.
Sure.
Uh,
So now they got the top half on there in this image,
yep,
in the deal there, and now that is showing where the vacuum press has sucked down and
yep,
compresses all the detail around the firearm.
yep, yep. That so this is still a press I use pretty often. Um, and I use it with actual weapons that the customers have dropped off because I don't have a mold for that particular weapon. Um, in certain instances,
Hmm.
that does not give you as good of definition as you can get with the membraneless former and using mold guns, especially a split mold. There was a picture that had one up in the right hand corner of the definition you get with the different press. Um, but it still makes good holsters. So I still use it. I don't know if that's a GarageWorks press, vacuum press. I don't know that he's still making those. That's got some time on it.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you used to do it before you had a vacuum press?
Well, I got a vacuum press pretty early on, but the way they used to do it, and some guys still do it on occasion. Faltech Unlimited does it. A 2x6, a 1.5 inch, 2 inch piece of urethane foam rubber, and another 2.5 inch piece of foam rubber, and another 2x6, and you use um, I'm getting drawing a complete blank. Use clamps,
Yeah. Yeah.
adjustable clamps, and you just clamp it down and squeeze it together. That gives you a 50-50 um, two-piece holster because you get the same. You lay the Kydex down. You have the rubber, lay the Kydex down, lay the weapon down, lay the top down, put the rubber on another 2x6, and clamp it for all you're worth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get it. You get what they call a 50-50. So it's 50% on top, 50% on the bottom. With the way I'm doing with that other press, that GarageWorks press was it gives you what they call an 80-20 or 90-10.
Oh, gotcha.
Less definition, less on the bottom or back side of the holster than on the front. So
Sure. Gotcha. So then
yeah.
after you've done the mold, you then take it and you apply whatever hardware you're going to do, cut it to shape, all that stuff. What comes after the molding process?
So once you take it out of the mold, you can see there was one picture there that had, and that was obviously probably a staged picture for the newspaper article you did on me.
Yeah.
But the one before that, that's my
Or that
layout.
coming this way?
No, one more forward, not the other way,
Oh, other way. Okay,
one
going the
more.
other way.
So there you can see a layout on
Oh, yeah.
on the holster. So I draw out the holster, the shape I want it to be. I have pretty standard shapes for my holsters. They don't vary much unless a customer wants a different shape or it's an odd gun, like a Luger would not look good with that type of holster layout that I did. So that was a completely different layout. So I draw it out there. I figure out where my edges are going to be, where my eyelets are going to go. Um, and then I cut out that front half. Then I lay that on the back half, trace that out, the rough form that I've done, um, trace that onto the bottom half, cut that out, and then I do an old school method of drilling my eyelets instead of just eyeballing them. Um, you can see where I have them lined out inside those two parallel white lines. That's a special kind of uh, artist pencil, wipes off with hot water and soap. I draw my lines where my eyelets are going to go, and then I drill them. And then once I have two holes on each side drilled, um, I bolt those together, and then I sand the halves at the same time. I bolt them together instead of eyeletting them together. Some guys put their eyelets in right away and then sand with their eyelets, but I do it with bolts and nuts, bolt them together and sand them. And that way, when I'm done sanding and shaping, I can separate them again and clean out all the extra
Stuff.
material and stuff. Yeah, the
Yeah. Yeah.
detritus that's inside the holster and stuff, and wash it out. Whereas if you do it with them eyeletted together, you can still get them pretty clean, but you're going to leave some stuff in there, and that's just the
Sure.
way I prefer to do it. And then I put the eyelets in, which permanently attaches both halves. Well, not permanently, but actively attaches both halves, and then I polish the edges. Um, which is something that I still do. A lot of places don't do that. I just like the look of a nice polished Kydex edge. and
Yeah.
um,
Well, it looks
and
more
then
professional too, to me. Like I think it looks more finished because a lot of these big companies, like you were saying the other day, and I've noticed this, that they even not the, like Chinese ones that you get from Amazon. I'm talking major producers. You'll get these holsters and they're just flat cuts, and they're not polished smooth. And I feel like, especially for like an IWB concealed carry type holster, that makes it less comfortable to wear.
yeah, yeah, and it rounds the edges. It smooths. It's if it was a gun, they'd call it a melting. They melted. A lot of carry guns used to call them. Oh, it's got a melt treatment where they round all the edges or chamfer all the edges, and that's just not my still like to do for the holsters I put out. It looks better. They're nicer to touch. There's no sharp edges, and it's something
Sure.
I still do.
Gotcha. Well, so we kind of covered a little bit of the process of making it. I wanted to talk to you about options when it comes to conceal carry, and outside of the waistband, all kinds of things like that. Um, so I've got a bunch of questions. We're gonna probably jump into questions earlier than I normally do. But something I had somebody ask was, how long does it take to get comfortable carrying every day? What what are some considerations as far as like let's start with conceal and then we'll move outside the waistband, but like conceal carry type stuff, because people are worried about like printing and the right clothes and all. There's so much that goes into that.
Okay.
How long does it take to get comfortable with a concealed carry, I guess? Or is it ever comfortable?
Um, I think it was um, Clint Smith from Thunder Ranch Training Facility that said carrying a handgun is supposed to be comforting, not comfortable.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know that carrying it inside the waistband is ever super physically comfortable, if that's what they're asking. But if they're asking about how long it takes to get comfortable with the idea of carrying a handgun every day, and that's really on a personal level, the more training you get and the more you understand how a good holster works, the quicker you're going to become comfortable mentally with carrying, which goes to printing. Um, Everybody, when they first start carrying a handgun concealed, they think like they have the um, mark of Cain, you know, or or
Yeah.
or the Jewish star that everybody knows you're carrying.
Mhm.
And I'm here to tell you, after carrying concealed for well over 30 years, nobody knows.
Sure. Well, unless
There
they're
are a
like
few of us.
trained to spot stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few of us who play spot the carry.
Yeah.
You might do that once in a while. I do that on a frequent basis, even with my wife, when we're in places we know they have a lot of people who are carrying a concealed weapon. We try and spot the guy who's carrying a concealed weapon. But even after years of playing that game, it's hard. People notice a lot less than you think. People are too busy on their phones. People are too busy looking at clothes. If they're in the department store, they're looking for their groceries, trying to find, you know, raspberry frosted Pop Tarts or whatever. They're not looking at you and wondering if you're carrying a weapon. Um,
Sure.
I don't know that there's a lot of places now where if you accidentally, I think they used to call it flashing. If you accidentally expose part of your weapon, in a lot of places that used to be um, punishable. That was an offense. I think
Hmm.
that's gone away a little bit, and you're almost invariably going to print to some degree. And I don't know if you want to explain what printing is, but um, generally, it's the grip of the handgun will stick out a little bit, or your clothes will cling enough to it where you may vaguely see the shape of the grip of the handgun is printing. Um, you will print at times Um, I don't know that there's any concealed carry method where you won't print somewhat. Appendix is probably the least likely to do it if you have a good appendix holster. But you're going to print, but people won't see it. Um, you can wear a shirt that's not a flat color, kind of like what
Hmm.
you're wearing right now. That breaks
Sure.
up print for a lot of people from more than 2 feet away. They're not going to see it. Um, so it's not as big a deal. People aren't going to notice it as much as you think they're going to. I know when I first started carrying, I thought everybody knew I was carrying a gun. Um, but never once have I. My wife, who's a smart ass and is always, she's like, you're printing. I'm like, nobody's going to notice but you, because I carry a gun and you're looking to see what I'm wearing today to see how bad I'm printing. That's a habit she has, but most people aren't going to know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
don't worry about being comfortable that way. Um, a good inside the waistband holster, though, should eventually be fairly comfortable. I forget I have mine on a lot. Um, I carry 3 o'clock or 3:30. You carry appendix now.
I
Um,
do. Yeah.
so that to me is less comfortable than my 3 o'clock, but I've been doing it for decades. I know where my weapon's going to be if and when I ever need it. Um, I just can't find an appendix holster that fits me right. You have some stuff that you put on a holster I made for you, some padding, and I still haven't asked you where you got that because I would sure like to try something like that. I know the foam blocks on the back help, um, but you had
Yeah.
some
Let's
extra
talk
padding.
about it. Yeah. I wanted to pull out. I'm trying to get some pictures now. I probably should bring it out, but I'm hesitant to show my stuff online.
Right, right.
um, so one of the things I've got on there, let's do this. Let's do the Google thing. Is what's called a wedge,
Yep.
and the wedge is like this here. This is just an eBay thing. That's this piece here, which I found tends to, when it's on your body, like let's just say, like I'm wearing it maybe on my chest, that wedge would go here and push it out this way. So it kind of cants the firearm, like the grip into you a
Into
little
the
bit.
body. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I got one of those on there.
And it's
And then all
padded.
I did, yeah, and it's and
Yeah.
that's the other thing too. Like you get on like the bottom corner here, it tends to like like a stabbing kind of motion into you. It kind of pokes you.
It's a hot spot.
Um, yeah, hot spot's the word I'm looking for. So that I kind of took that down a little bit, but that wedge really helps save a lot of that, and it creates that point of the wedge there has more contact with your body, and it being softer, it pads it. Um, I also noticed that this part of the holster on the IWB holsters, where it comes up, I extended that with all I did was I took a Velcro that you can buy just from the store. They have like the peel and stick on Velcro.
Mhm.
I put Velcro all on the back on all these different points there, and you can buy, and you might do this for some of your holsters because it made a huge difference for me because I can wear it with skinny jeans and not print very much at all. Not that I wear skinny jeans a lot, but it it makes a huge difference, right? It makes a huge difference for comfort because that's the the consideration a lot of people make is the clothes that they wear.
Mhm.
Um,
I think they have to buy oversized clothes and extra big pants. I don't personally find that. Um, I have to buy an exercise bigger in pants. I it's the same pants I wear on a daily basis without if I'm not carrying. So um,
sure.
yeah,
Um,
it's
all I Go ahead.
it's just it will become comfortable. You just get used to it, I guess, is the biggest thing. And if I could carry appendix, and I keep trying, I would because I think that's a nicer draw stroke. Um,
Faster, way faster.
faster. It's more. Yeah, it's just right there instead of having to come behind you. Which I mean, I haven't been to the range in a while like I should be, but I have a pretty good draw stroke, which is something I practice, and I'm sure you practice your draw stroke. Um, but guys that practice and get good with appendix are lightning fast,
Yeah.
and it is a better concealment, other than the fact that some people are not comfortable with putting a loaded gun, even if they understand how the trigger mechanism and everything works and the holster's working, pointing a loaded gun at their femoral artery
Mhm.
or their junk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the nicest way I can put that is we'll just call it your junk. So, but you are doing that with an appendix carry invariably. But
Oh
um,
yeah.
if I have it negligent or accidental, some people call it accidental. I call it negligent. No matter what, they're all accidents if you shoot yourself. But I'll shoot myself in the butt. Is what I'll do.
Yeah. What are the different? We might pause here, and I might actually go get that holster just so I can talk about kind of what we were talking about, and it's visual. Because I don't know a lot of places that kind of do what I did to mine. I'm sure somebody's come up with it. I'm not. No way. I'm the first person to come up with it. But what are some? Because you've got appendix carry, you've got kind of behind the back along the side. What are some really common ways people will do an IWB carry?
So those are the two most common is 3 or 330 is what I call it because it's just off the point of my hip. To the rear of the point of my hip is so that's the 3 o'clock or 330 is what I call it. You have appendix, which is directly in front, which is straight down. If you can, if you can see the rest of me, that's a it's a great way to carry if you can get comfortable that way. If you can make it, it seems to hit me funny. You've mitigated some of that with your padding, which I'm definitely going to try. Um, there is small of the back carry, which is the op. If you're right-handed, you actually have the grip facing the opposite way so that you can go behind your back and pull it out. Um, I look at things like covering body parts or flagging body parts. If you're small of the back, um, you're going to flag something on the way out, either bystanders or yourself. Whereas appendix, if you get good, you're not flagging really anything.
Yeah.
330, you don't flag anything because you come out and then present it. Um, that's going by. I don't like small of the back because if you get into what we call an entangled gunfight, and before you get your gun, if you get pushed down and land on your tailbone with a
Yeah.
gun back there, that's almost
Ouch.
a debilitating and disabling injury in the moment. I mean, it is going to be extremely painful. Cross draw is another, um, which is a little further to the other side than appendix, but the gun is oriented the same way. It's
Hmm.
so 330 appendix cross draw. If you're right-handed, the gun's always oriented the same way in the holster. Um,
Sure.
small the back is exactly opposite. Um, you have guys that you have some of these gimmick T-shirts where they carry concealed under an armpit in a pocket on the T-shirt. I'm not a big shoulder holster guy because you're flagging a body part. There's no way to get well, I guess you could come way out here and then present it, but um, more deep concealment. And there's a need for that. Certain
Sure.
detectives and things like that, deep concealment. But inside the waistband, those are your three primary carries. Not very many people carry cross draw. And
Yeah.
and small of the back is going away. So it's usually 3 o'clock or appendix. Um,
Sure. I approached you early on with the project. We never actually did. Um, but I was at that time I was really practicing with cowboy action speed draw shoot type stuff, and I wanted to get into it. So Wild Bill Hickok was kind of my inspiration. So a lot of people, you'll see pictures of him with the butts of his gun forward, right? So it's like this, right? And that was called cavalry draw. And you had just mentioned about flagging, right? And because everybody knows Wild Bill Hickok was fast, right? He's
Yep.
one of the most famous, like confirmed gunfights that was most like the Old West that we have record of. Was like a 70-yard shot with one of his 36 caliber Colt Navies, and he was cavalry carrying them, and essentially there I wanted to try it just to see if, number one, you could be as fast, which you totally can be. I have found. Can you do it without flagging? Right, because you think about like the draw and everything, you're basically coming in, like hand in, coming out, turning, and then up. And you would think that you would flag your hips or something when you do that draw. But I found that if you come up and are turning in that spot, you're not flagging, you're pointing at the ground, and then coming up. So I approached you with an idea of doing it, I think with a 1911 or something, just doing a reverse outside of the waistband, I think it was. But we never ended up doing that. And the problem I had was in experimenting with that motion, I found that I would set the light off because I had a light on that pistol at the time.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And there was no real benefit to the main benefit with that cavalry carry is that you've got like that shape fits your body when you sit down. Like, so if the butt's forward, the barrel's down and you sit, it fits the L of your body more, and it allows you better access when you're sitting.
Yep.
I just wanted to see if it would work on a modern, holster type thing, but we never ended up doing that project.
And that's one thing that appendix carry does in a car is you have access to your weapon sitting behind the steering wheel, that's a pretty big advantage to appendix carry. Whereas if I have a seatbelt on, I have to mess trying to getting around the seatbelt and then getting to my gun and then getting it presented. Whereas you just
you're just here.
Yep.
I mean, immediate.
Yep.
So we're a couple minutes from the top of the hour here. I'm gonna do a pause real quick and go get my holster, and we'll talk about what we were just talking about with the padding and stuff. Give me one moment. All right, we are back. We had to go get some examples. So let's start with the one that we were talking about earlier. So this is my appendix carry, and you can see that there's a lot of stuff on the back side of it, including a wedge that I have kind of positioned at a weird angle because that bend right there for me was a hot spot. So I kind of wrapped it around, and all of this stuff on the back here it's Velcroed on there, right? So I've got one that kind of curves around the bottom, just kind of hangs loosey-goosey there.
Yeah.
And then this is what I wanted to talk to you about was getting neoprene. You just order neoprene. A lot of times it already has the soft part of the hook and loop. So you just on the holster, you do the actual hook part, and then neoprene will just slap right on there. And so you don't have to, it keeps it slimline and everything, but this is some pretty thick. Actually, this is like a stretchy neoprene that came from another holster it was like a straight neoprene holster that I did not like. So I cut it up and harvested the neoprene for it. And I created a ramp here because with that wedge, it kind of drives the pistol into your stomach a little more. So that kind of created like something I could, like when I do a draw, I'm not scratching up my belly. And also when I'm sitting, it just cushions that area a little more.
Yep. Which is where I run into. I'm a little older and a little more out of shape than you are. So I'm a textbook example of dad bod. So I do have the problem with some belt overlap that makes the appendix carry a little less comfortable for me.
Yeah, I will say that being leaner, because I've mentioned, I think the last couple podcasts, that I've lost a bunch of weight in a really short amount of time. And when I did that, I still was probably 30 pounds, 40 pounds heavier. And that's why I added that, because it was super, it's less of a concern now, but still having that on there makes a big difference, comfort of wear. The other thing I did on there that I showed you last time that was kind of hokey, is so it actually like sits on you like this. So that's where your belt goes through. So I did this little, I just took out one of the screws so I could pivot it. And I found that like it allows me to insert in there. It will on the belt come in, and then I can hook that in there, and it kind of allows me to get it in more comfortably and also cant it just a little depending on the pants I'm wearing. So so that allows me to conform the holster to whatever pants I have. And there's hardware, I think you mentioned, that kind of does that already. It allows that modularity. Do you want to talk about some of those options?
I guess you kind of have me at a loss there.
I think you had mentioned that there's like, what you were talking about, I showed you this and you were kind of checking out, there's like a little
yeah.
device
So
that can, I don't know what
I
you'd
can
call it
actually
even.
show you that on my site. So there's different jigs you can put. That's called blocking. That actually allows
Okay.
the clip, the belt clip or loop or attachment. You block that out so that none of the actual metal hardware from the screws and Chicago posts contact the weapon. I have a piece of blocking in here that allows me to either cant the pistol or have it ride straight drop. That's one example of kind of what you're looking at or talking
Gotcha.
about. Um, so, and there's you can make this is two holes, two separate holes. You can also get you can also drill it so that it's a like a
Like a
crescent
nut.
shape, like a notch, and a crescent shaped notch, which gives you more rotation also. Um,
Sure.
with that type, and you can adjust it to how you want it. I have it canted, which turns the grip up, um, cants it forward, and so that actually helps it to print less than if it's sitting straight out and coming straight out of my hip. This does the kind of this a little bit what appendix does is it aligns it differently with your body so that it doesn't stick out behind your hip, which
Sure.
isn't a real problem with either of the weapons that we're showing right now. Because they're both considered micro compacts. You should also pull that back up and show people that's about as much as you can get onto a weapon of the size that you're carrying. Um,
Yeah,
in an inside the waistband model holster, you have a miniature red dot on there. You
I
also
do.
have a weapon light on that weapon, all in a very compact package. There's not much more you can put on there. Um,
No.
and you still carry it on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
that can just tell people who are wondering and are interested or wondering about that kind of stuff. You can comforting, not comfortable
Yeah.
necessarily, but that's the whole point of concealed carry.
Sure. And for anybody who's like asking, my weapon has been cleared. So if I'm like, for example purposes, waving it around, we are clear. I did want to talk about this that people are going to see and go, what is that? Who don't know anything about holsters, the wing there.
Yep, the
Why don't
claw.
you talk?
They're called a
Yeah.
claw or a wing, mod wing. I believe is that what
I
that
think that's
actual
what that
piece is a mod wing. So what that does is it comes off the holster the way it did, and when you have that inside your belt line, that wing and that foot off of the wing, the top part is in line with your belt, and as you tighten your belt, that turns the handle or the grip
yeah.
even more into your body. Um, so it just helps conceal it that much more. It really turns the weapon into your, um, in your case, on the appendix, it really brings it in tight to the body. So
Yeah.
and as your shirt hangs naturally, it virtually disappears. I mean, appendix is a great way to carry concealed and have the least amount of printing. Um,
Yeah, it
yeah.
it is, and it's super old too. Like people kind of think about it as something new, but I mean, pirates, in the 1800s and earlier, I mean, they would carry something appendix like that. That was a really popular way. In the Old West, people would carry appendix.
Yep, yep. And they back then they had little attachments or pieces of metal that they did the same thing. They were trying to they incorporate in the same thing that mod wing does. It's kind of crazy. I think one of the first times you saw it in a movie with somebody who carried appendix was Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. Um,
Huh.
in the scene where he's got some sniper up in a motel or something like that, and they're out in the parking lot, and he just walks out into the middle of the parking lot and pulls his weapon out. It wasn't quite what we call appendix. It was a little bit more to the right, but it was still in front. He pulls the gun out, and that was one of the first examples in cinema, I think, of or modern cinema where you saw somebody who was carrying. So appendix isn't a new thing. It's kind of the new thing now. I mean, that's where a lot of guys are going is appendix carry, but it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it works.
Yep.
It works.
Yep.
Does
And you
the
see a
job.
lot of in the old west. You even guys that had holsters, they carried a spare, um, what we now call a California reload. Back in sometimes it was cap and ball instead of having to reload a gun. They just went to their spare and they had one in the front of their belt, completely exposed. Barrel and everything. They just had it tucked into their belt, and that was their reload.
Yeah.
It was a whole
Well,
new
that's
gun.
way faster than trying to, you know, put it on half cock, start spinning the cylinder, powder, ball,
Yeah.
or even like paper cartridge, throw it in there, lever. I mean, add a cap. Yeah, it was take
Yeah.
you
Or
forever.
even brass cartridges with the loading gate to open the loading gate, put one in, spin it, put one in, spin it. Yeah.
Yep.
So second gun, we call it a California reload now.
Right.
So
Um, so talking about concealed carry holsters, there's other options too besides just so like one of them that I can think of off the top of my head is the I think it's Filster makes it the Enigma.
the
Um,
Enigma. Yep.
yeah, that's a whole system. It looks like to me.
It is. It's an interior belt. You can wear it with gym shorts. You can wear it with um, what do they call them? Leggings, I guess, for the ladies, spandex workout pants. You don't need any type of support. Um, it- it's it's all there. And so the Filster, that's Philly EDC. That's what he started as. The guy that I
Yeah,
started following years ago on YouTube, who was showing you how to make a Kydex holster and toaster oven in the bedroom of his spare bedroom of his parents' house. Um, and he's turned into this. That is uh, a pretty big system, but it's interchangeable. You can buy that system and put different weapons on it, different guns, different holsters. So
yeah.
there she is in some workout pants, and I've never laid hands on one. I've watched a couple of videos on how to install them and get them set up, but it's a neat system. Um,
Yeah. It's
and it's
interesting, that's for sure.
yeah,
It just to me it seems like a lot of rigging to
it's a
do it.
lot. I mean, you have a belt loop, a leg loop down there that attaches to your leg, and because you have to have something to keep the whole thing from coming up when you make your draw stroke, the whole belt from coming up and just following me up. So there is an
Yeah.
anchor loop, um, but I mean it works, and it has a really specific um, use.
Mhm.
But it's a neat system.
Yeah.
But it is
They're
it is not plug it. It's not break it out and put it on. You have
yeah.
to adjust it and set it up and all kinds of stuff. But it is something. I mean, my hat's off to him for a guy who started out very small and is now international. It's quite a deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's a cool system. It just to me seems like a lot. But I mean, you got to judge your level of, and they're expensive too. They're
Yes.
kind of expensive, those systems. But um, the nice thing too is it's separate from your clothes. So like mine, I have to have a pant with belt. You know
Yep.
that obviously she had yoga pants on underneath, but you could wear it underneath the. I don't know if I'd try to do it with yoga pants, but you could do it under workout shorts or whatever, and that system will work regardless of the clothes that you have on.
Yep. Sweatpants, if you don't want to get dressed on a Saturday and you have that thing already set up ahead of time, you can throw that on and right inside your sweatpants and run to the store.
Yeah.
So it definitely has specific uses, but um, my stuff is kind of old school, like I mean it's pretty simple stuff. My outside the waistbands have loops, belt loops. There's all kinds of different belt loops. There's the speed clips and there's the solid loops and things like that. But um,
Oh yeah. We should mention too that it's important. I need to like this is a token thing for every episode that I talk about anything like this, whether it's climbing, firearms, hunting, whatever. But you need to get out and practice. And I think this is doubly true when you're going to be carrying something concealed because you want not only to like not muff up the draw, because that, there's a whole deal, right? You're pulling the shirt out, pulling the gun out, and presenting without flagging safely, quickly, being on target. There's a lot that can go wrong within that process, getting tangled up or whatever. Maybe you should speak a little bit to the importance of training with IWB stuff.
well, I think it just even goes beyond IWB. But if you're going to carry a gun, it is your responsibility to get training.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
To Guns are inherently dangerous, and buying a gun at the store and buying a cheap holster and thinking you're going to throw it in your pants and become invincible or even not a danger to yourself and everybody else is a fallacy. You I can't stress enough to get training and get good training, get solid training, get to the range, do repetitious training. When I shot USPSC uh, and with the USPSA practical pistol, um, I practiced my draw stroke hours on end and my presentation, and different hours on end. I dry fired and dry firing is a good practice. But practice your draw stroke because you have to clear your garment. That's the first thing you have to do. Clear your garment, get a good solid grip on the gun, what I call a combat grip, because it's and get it out and present it, and so that you are basically on target before you're actually aiming the weapon. You should be pretty much on target. But again, I think I don't know if it was Clint Smith or Jeff Cooper or any number of people. Every bullet that comes out of your weapon, you are responsible for.
Yep.
Um, Police officers shoot bystanders all the time, negligently or accidentally, or however you want to term it. So if you're going to carry a weapon, training is of utmost importance. Repetition is of utmost importance. Um, if you're going to carry a gun inside the waistband, outside the waistband, you need to have a good quality holster. Um,
Yep.
and I don't know if we've addressed that yet, but a holster has to stay in place where so you know where your gun is at. It has to hold the gun in place when it's not in use.
Mm-hmm.
It has to fully cover the trigger so that nothing can get inside the trigger guard and discharge your weapon negligently or accidentally. Um, it has to release the gun when you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, God forbid you have to go to gun, but it happens every day in this country. There are good people defending against bad guys. And when you need your gun, it has to be where you think it's going to be. It has to have been positively retained up until that point. And when you need it, it needs to come out of the holster in a smooth fashion. Um, and that's and it has to completely cover the trigger guard. And something that a lot of people don't consider is that if you're involved in a defensive shooting, when the police show up, you don't want to be holding your gun in your hand.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to reholster your weapon,
Which is a
which
whole
is
thing you need to train for.
the whole thing you need to train for. And cheap holsters, there are a lot of them on the shelves at every single gun store you go into that are made out of nylon or neoprene, like the one you talked about. That when you pull the gun out, they collapse.
Hmm.
It's a two-handed or a multi-handed or open your pants up to get it back into the holster. So that's one nice thing about a good leather holster or a Kydex holster is it doesn't collapse. It's when you take the gun out, it is still open and you can reholster it so that when law enforcement arrives, you're not standing over somebody with a weapon in your hand.
Yeah. Right.
So you don't get shot. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And we
so
don't
yes,
want to,
training is very important.
right. Oh yeah. We're not going to give like legal advice on anything, but you need to, that's a whole nother thing you need to learn about is, the aftermath, and they've got insurance out there for people that have to pull their weapon. There's all kinds of legal considerations and everything. And there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot besides just getting the gun and carrying it.
Yep. Yep. If
So,
you use your gun, it starts a whole different path for your entire life after that. So
yeah.
it's a weapon. It's a tool of last resort, but when you need it, you need it. So
Right. And something that I wanted to mention along those lines for me personally, because I've owned guns for a long, long time, but I haven't been a concealed carrier for very, very long. And but I have found that because I'm the kind of person who really tries to dive into too many things, too many hobbies, obviously, hence this podcast. um, but um, I it sent me on more of a journey than just having a concealed carry. The other considerations around it, I found it made me a better civilian during, I mean, luckily I haven't been involved in too many like concerns like this kind of thing, but working with law enforcement, understanding how they approach a scene, these are all questions I started asking, and they made me just a better citizen, just in general, right? I if I'm present at a scene, there's things I'm thinking about. There's like we had a car, so I've had this conversation twice in the last couple of weeks. Once with you, and once with Eric Lund last night. We were talking about this. He's going to be on one of the next coming podcasts. Real famous three gun guy. Well, I had talked to you about having a light on your weapon, and you have the opinion that it's not something that the average gun owner should have. And I kind of agree and disagree a little bit. And Eric kind of sided with both sides, I guess. Um, and I think it really comes down to the level of training, right? And the thing that I like to say is you should always have, because the concern people have is, you can go ahead and speak to it. Why do you think, and it's 100% valid, why do you think the average gun owner should not have a pistol or a light on their pistol?
so one is lack of training. Um, the other
Yeah.
is a handgun is any firearm is a desperate situation, a weapon of last resort, but I don't have to run towards trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And at night, if I'm downtown or if first of all, you have to even consider if you're going to get involved in a situation. Say you see somebody running down the street and somebody's chasing after him. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Or somebody runs around the corner and a lady's screaming. Are you going to get involved first off? And secondly, if you are going to get involved, you don't have to run down the alley after a perpetrator. You don't
Yeah.
have to run into the dark after a perpetrator. You should, first instinct should be to be running away from a bad guy and at night. So police are different in that police run to trouble. They run
Yeah.
into danger, which people can say what they want about the police and that whole issue, but you have to take your hats off to those guys. They run into danger when the time comes. Um, I don't have to as a citizen. I don't have to go out in my if someone's stealing my bike out of my garage in the middle of the night, I might go peek at them, but I don't have to confront them. And if I'm carrying a gun, do I even want to confront them? Do I want to escalate? Do I have to worry about escalating? Are they going to have a weapon? Do I really want to shoot somebody? I don't. I'm fully prepared to defend
Mhm.
myself and my family, my loved ones. I've gone through this philosophically over and over again and in depth. I'm fully prepared to shoot somebody if I have to, but I don't have to. I
Yeah.
can run away first. I can barricade myself in my bedroom. There's not a lot in my house that I think it's worth taking a life over. Even my vintage Hot Wheels, you
Yeah.
know, um, or whatever I may have as a possession in my home is not worth taking a life for. So I can
Yeah.
barricade myself in my bedroom with my guns
Mhm.
and call 911. If they kick my door in, everything changes, but I
Yeah.
don't have to go out and look for it. That's one reason why I don't think the average civilian needs a weapon light. There are certain cases, and I speak about this as I have a bedside gun with a weapon light on it.
Mhm.
Um, but the other issue is that if whatever you're illuminating with that weapon light, you are also pointing a loaded gun at.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm the police, I'm pointing a loaded gun at somebody because they're already a bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Um, my children are grown and gone. Nobody's sneaking into the home after hours, after they've had a couple of beers at some party out in the country and they're trying to get in. That's happened more than once in this country too, where a father shot his daughter or his son sneaking in at night. Um, there's a point that if they had illuminated their daughter with the weapon light, that they wouldn't have shot her.
Mhm.
But it's a tense situation if you're pointing a gun at somebody at that point, whether it's coming in through a window, that the average citizen, I don't believe, trains enough for, or even considers enough, that they're going to
Yeah.
be pointing a loaded gun. Most of them, a lot of them are going to have their finger in the trigger
Yeah.
or on the trigger at that point. And I'm not saying don't put a weapon light on your gun. If you
Yeah.
consider everything that there is, you have certain circumstances. You've voiced them to me logically and intelligently as to why you have one on your gun, and you have a lot of training. You
Don't
border
tell
on
too
a
many people
training
that.
junkie.
I
you
might be
you
a little
board
bit.
Yeah, you border on a training junkie. I used to be that way. I've gotten out of it a little bit as I've gotten older and have done what you've done and dipped my toe in too many different activities and hobbies that I've spread it out a little bit. But um, we're both highly trained. I'm not tooting my own horn or being a braggart or anything, but we're both highly trained because we've decided to go that route. You're much more current than I am at this point because I've let my skills slide a little bit because I run three businesses at this point. You're getting there, my friend,
Yeah, I know.
yourself. So be careful what you wish for. But
Right.
so those are my opinions on weapon lights. They're not a bad thing. I just don't think the average citizen or gun owner has enough training to realize what they're actually doing with the
Yeah.
weapon light.
And it's true. I mean, it is really true. And when I say I disagree with it, it's not to say that like it's not at all incorrect or a invalid opinion, because it 100% is. The way that I usually approach it is more of enhancing capability of the individual. And what I was going to get at earlier is like, I believe everybody should have a second light on them at all times. Like it's right. Yeah. So like Eric was saying last night, and this is something, look forward to that podcast because we're going to talk about this levels, progressive levels of intent or violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had better words for it than I did, but like, the gun is the ultimate end thing. You're not just like, jumping from point A to gun, right? A to G has a whole lot more letters in between there, right? You're looking at situational awareness. You're looking at, how can I de-escalate this? How can I get away? How can I get people that are in danger away? I'm not like in my house, I'm not bumping the night, oh, grab gun, go. I'm flashlight, looking at what's going on. I might have the gun with me. If things get kind of serious, maybe we need to go there. Maybe, hopefully, just me moving around, then most often is going to cause the person to leave the home. Because most bad guys, they're not there, like, it's a crime of opportunity, right? They're not there to be violent or aggressive. It happens. But it's a really common saying. I don't think it really is true, but the best home defense is the sound of a shotgun racking, right? Not true. But the point is
No.
that most of the time, any kind of noise alerts the criminal, and they're like, "Oh crap, I'm out of here."
Criminals are like lions or other apex predators. They're not looking for the strong, the healthy, the quick.
Yeah.
They're looking for the easy prey, whether it be to grab something real quick out of a house or, which is why they talk about when you're walking around, keep your head up, keep alert. They're looking for people that are absorbed in their phones, or people that aren't paying attention to their surroundings, people that don't know, so they don't want confrontation, believe it or not. Most of them. There are a few psychopaths out there that are dangerous and truly evil, but most criminals are they're looking for quick, easy things. They're not looking for people to do it. But you're talking about, there's a lot between A to G. You have to go through the OODA loop. You
Yeah.
know, observe, orient, decide, and act. You have to decide. You have to observe what's going on, and then orient yourself to the situation, and then decide what you're going to do, and then act. And if you're going to act with violence, you act with overwhelming violence, which is what the gun is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because
but
at
those
that
are
point, you don't have any room to not. You don't want to give any advantage to the bad guy.
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I wanted to get more into the light thing just a little bit, because there are obviously things to train through, right? So it's not just you're just an example, right? So you're not going to pull the gun and use the light on the gun to flash everything and search the house that way. You're probably turning lights
you're
on.
you're not you're
Yeah,
not because
I
you're
know I'm
trained
not.
to it.
That's why I will 100% give you that, because most people don't think about this kind of stuff. But
No.
for the people who really want to be prepared and really want to know what they're doing, the things I'm about to say apply to those people, I guess.
Yep. Okay, we'll
Um,
go with that.
yeah, I know.
Yep. Yep.
Go get training.
Yep.
Go
Yeah.
be with
Training.
somebody. Yeah, go be with somebody who knows what they're doing, and they will show you these things, right? But there are such thing as, if you've just got the light on the gun, you've got splash. You don't have to point the gun directly at whatever. You can point it at the ground, turn the light on. If you're searching your house, you need to be turning lights on. It's not like I'm going to go search with my flashlight on my pistol around the house, right? You're flipping lights on, and hopefully that's enough to spook the person out of there. I'm probably, again, going to my pocket flashlight that's by my bed every night. I can grab that light and go through. If the power is out, who knows, whatever. I
Mhm.
have light that is not on the gun. to use. You know, so there's things that you should be a person who is taking the responsibility on of being a gun owner and having that option for defense. My opinion for my circumstances is, and I think is just kind of a general thing, you are more accurate two-handed on a pistol than you are one-handed on a pistol. And I've trained to do one-handed. You know,
100% more accurate.
offhand and all that. You need to do that.
Yep.
That's something you need to do that's another thing you need to do, right? But if I'm gonna draw, I have trained to have the light under and be able to shoot that way. I'm not as accurate doing this as I am with a full grip on the pistol. So if I can drop that light and have a light on the pistol that I don't also have to hold, you know, what do they call it? Law enforcement PID, positive identification, practical identification, whatever.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. But you're also going to have your finger. You are going to have your finger outside the trigger guard until you're ready to shoot at what you're willing to 100%. Destroy. You know, so that's a whole thing too. And I agree. Weapon lights are a valid tool, 100%. I just when a guy who comes in, and I've had it a number of times, hey, I just got this gun. It's my first handgun. I need a holster for it. And he's got a weapon light on it. I'm like,
yeah.
Why do you want a weapon light on your gun?
Yeah. And I think you asked me that when I first came over and we had a conversation about firearms. Yeah. And it's good that you asked, 100%.
And you told me in an intelligent and trained manner that you've demonstrated. And I'm like, yeah, I'll put a weapon light. I'll build your holster for a light. No problem. And I do. I mean, most people I do, but there's some people I'm like, go get training first. And then I'll think about I'll make you a regular holster, but I don't think you need a weapon light. And that's probably presumptuous on my part, but my name's on this stuff. My reputation and people's lives are on this stuff. So,
yeah,
you know, when I make a holster, people's lives depend on my holsters. 99% of the time they don't, but when they need it, their life depends on it. So I take that very seriously, which is part of my background and my training that I've taken like you have. So
yeah, I've been so blessed and so fortunate to train with just some of the best people on earth. You know, not everybody has that. But I mean, the thing is you have YouTube now. I mean, I say this all the time, you have the most powerful device humankind has ever invented, access to all the information in the universe that we know currently with the touch of a button. Why would you not try to learn as much as you can?
Right. Especially with something that's an inherently dangerous object.
Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about OWB holsters.
Okay.
we might go over the 2-hour mark, and which I'm okay with. If you are, we're okay.
Yep.
Okay. And some of these do. You know, that's just how it is. I keep touching my camera here to make sure it doesn't crap out on us. But so we'll compare two again. So we've got IWB here. These are both right-handed holsters. We've got an OWB on another pistol here. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this again, we're clear. Nothing in there. Don't want to get the YouTube Nazis saying anything. But
that holster looks familiar.
Yeah, you did this one. And this is I think both of these are taco type. So you've done a 2-piece for me that's for my larger carry. But this is that clip you were talking about that goes over your belt, right?
Yep.
It's
a nice attachment.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And it's adjustable. You can adjust it to the belt.
Yep.
And for the YouTube algorithm, we are not showing how to alter a firearm, assemble this. We're not showing any of that stuff. That's not what's going on. So just in case.
It's not what I do.
No, no, not at all. Why would somebody choose an outside of the waistband versus an inside of the waistband?
Probably first and foremost is comfort.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
they're much more comfortable, um, and there are certain you can still conceal an outside the waistband holster. You have to dress a lot differently, so they're not really a concealment holster, but they're easier to work with and train with until you
Oh,
get into a more advanced point of your training, and when it's a good way to learn the draw stroke and go to the range. I call them range holsters. That's what I call them.
yeah.
Outside the waistbands, because most people don't conceal with them. So I call it a range holster. It's a holster you take to the range. It's you're not having to deal with your cover garment or anything like that. You may be guys that are on horseback do a lot of stuff on horseback, like outside the waistband holsters. Um, it's duty holsters are outside the waistband. Um, it's just a different way to carry, and it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
You have to admit that it's not
100%.
inside your pants. It's not up against your body. It's usually away from your body a little bit. There's more separation. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like it for camping. So I
Yep.
have it for camping. Although most of the time I'll have that if I'm like with a group camping, because then I'm not too worried about bears, because the noise and everything else. And I mean, you might still need one, but usually it's like in the car or not even on me. But um, that we did have a close encounter with some mountain hillbillies a couple years ago that I was glad I had it just in case. But um,
I was going to say the two-legged predators are almost as bad. You have to watch out for those almost as much as four-legged predators out camping anymore.
yeah, yeah, and these
They're
guys were
easier to get
nuts.
to. They're easier to access the weapon,
Yeah,
especially if you're at a certain baseline of training.
yeah.
Um,
And you're
it's where
not worried
everybody's
about
from.
yeah, and you're not worried about anybody seeing it or anything. You're out in whatever environment you're in.
Yeah.
Um,
And you may want people to see it at that point.
yeah.
If you're far enough, isolated and far enough away from a population center, then may just want people to say, he's not he's not old, weak, and infirm. He's carrying a
Hmm.
gun. I'm going to
Yeah.
move on to the next campsite to try and pillage.
Yeah. That's another conversation Eric and I had, because we were gearing up for the podcast we're going to do, talking about, and this shouldn't be stepping over what we're going to be talking about, him and I. We're going to talk about training, like holes in people's training,
Hmm.
just in general. But concealed carry versus open carry.
Hmm.
That was our conversation, right? And neither of us are pro open carry, other than it's a constitutional right. It's good to see people exercising that and whatever, and I think that's all good. But as an individual, we both agree that it creates more problems than it solves. The exception being like the camping example, right, out in nature already, where people are being opportunistic. You want to dissuade those individuals because they're already looking for trouble. But out in an environment where, you know, I'm not worried about people seeing that and, oh man, this guy's got a gun. It dissuades the problem. No, I don't think it. You're giving up the element of surprise too, the element to choose whether you want to act one way or another. If you've got that open carry, immediately you're a target. Immediately you lose your choice. If they're going to engage you, that's it. If they're going to engage a store, like say somebody's coming in to shoot up a store because they're crazy,
You're the first one to go.
exactly. You're the first target, right? I
Yeah.
don't I don't have the opportunity to surprise. I don't have the opportunity to get away and call 911, get the cavalry to come in because I'm not going to be, the one man show there, the diehard situation. That's just not realistic.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of open carry either, other than like you said, it's legal in a lot of
Mhm.
places now, and you can, but I still to this day am always kind of shocked to see someone open carrying in Walmart.
Yeah, it happens
Um,
a lot in Montana,
oh, you know,
everywhere.
Oklahoma, freaking Texas, freaking. I mean, we travel all over the country as truck drivers, and
Yeah,
there's places where a lot of people open carry, and I'm just like that. And it may be the fifth one I've seen in that day, and I'm still like, there's another one. That's why I said, Winnie, there's guys open carrying, and she knows. Yeah, if you have to have a 360-degree observation area because someone can walk up behind you and pluck it right out of your holster. You know, um,
yeah.
there's plenty of videos out there on YouTube of that, of an open carry guy at a convenience store, and some gentleman walks up behind him and plucks his gun out, and away he goes.
Especially
You
without
know.
what is it, active retention versus passive retention. We
Mhm.
should probably talk about that actually. What's the difference between those two things? And am I using the right terminology?
Yep, active protection and passive retention. So this is going to be, as this is set up right now, is passive retention. It relies on the click of the Kydex, um, which is always done through the trigger guard unless it's a light, and then sometimes we get the retention off the light. There's the active click. Even with um, I make holsters for people that have to be level 2 active retention, which is some type of strap or hood, um,
Mm,
and they can't just pull the gun out. That there's a barrier to them pulling the gun out. They used to be called thumb brakes on leather holsters, um, but thumb brakes are, if you know what you're looking at, you can walk up and just break it with your thumb and steal the gun anyways.
yeah.
Active retention is more of it's attached at both sides, and generally have some type of spring mechanism that pops the hood out of the way, or the strap, the retention strap. Um, there's level 2 and level 3. Um, Police officers have, like level 1, they have a strap and a hood.
Mm,
I mean, they have all kinds of stuff. It always impresses me when a police officer can be pretty quick on the draw with the crap he has to fight his way through to get his own gun out of his holster. Um,
yeah.
but I build those for law enforcement or security, or like I said, I have the one gentleman it's in um, let's just say he's in the protective security sector, I guess is the best way to put it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
he works with law enforcement. He has to have a minimum of level 2. Um, he sent me a big thing about his holster, that last holster I built for him, that it passed the Arizona um, law enforcement standards for active retention. Um, and so it was good to go. So I thought that was kind of cool that he sent me a copy of the certificate that he got, that because he had to have his holster, the holster he had destroyed, that I built him, and he had to have a new one built. And this time he actually had to take it to the state of Arizona because he works in it's not security um, like a rent a cop type deal. It's more of federal type security installations, and it had to pass that, and it passed. So that
Nice.
was kind of a neat deal. But yeah, so active retention is, there's actually an impediment to pulling the holster out. And there's a number of different ways you can do that, whether it's with trigger locks or straps or hoods. But um, I don't I don't have an example of active retention with me. Otherwise, I'd show it. If I make those, they're gone right away because they're being made for a specific person. I
Yeah.
don't make those to hang around, but
Yeah.
I could go get one and show you how it works on a holster, but an actual strap if you want.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because I've got a on my like training belt and stuff that's like full kitted out. I've got just a, what did I use? Just like shock cord, I think, just strapped over the guard. So I have to like strip the shock cord and then draw. and it's a whole deal. But yeah, slows you down, does for sure.
Now,
But
there's
that's
a
the
couple
point.
of them. The ones I use are actually have a thumb activation that, as part of the draw, you can just sweep right past it with your thumb, and it pops the hood open or the strap open, and you can still get the same grip and everything. But yeah, it's definitely different. And open top is passive retention. It's all in the
Yeah.
and there's the what do we call this? We call this we were talking about with leather holsters versus Kydex is you have it's not friction versus
Yeah.
an actual click fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So jumping into something else, unless you wanted to keep going on that.
no, we're good.
Okay. I had another weird project that I had you do at one point. I had a big buoy that has actually kind of a positive click in it, and like that's not coming out really.
Mhm.
But the concern you had with this guy, that's a buoy that I made for just survival stuff. But the issue you had was size, because you were talking about how big the sheets are, and this was like pushing the limit on that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and on the actual press that I had, the coffee bomb press, the book press, which is what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sounds like. It's a press that squeezes like this and is joined at the bottom with hinges. Um, it was right at the edge of that knife had been an inch longer, I would have had to build a new system.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna start. I ordered some survival machetes that I'm gonna refit, clean up, reprofile, do some stuff too. And I'm trying to figure out holsters for our sheaths, I guess, for them. And right now I've settled on because the size, it'd be too big, I think, for what you're working with. But I have a bunch of this old fire hose that I'm gonna make sheaths for them.
Oh,
Kind of fun.
yep.
So we are almost 13 minutes from the top of the hour or so. Let's jump into the questions.
Okay.
We have a lot of questions this time. Um, I think we already kind of answered this one. From Tom is asking why Kydex over leather, or well, just maybe that. Tom's asking why Kydex over leather or other material holsters. Why is Kydex a good choice?
Okay.
You,
One, it's easy to care for. It's very durable. Um, it stays open after you draw. So, and it's not one of these holsters that collapses when you draw the weapon, and then you have to take two hands or undo your pants and take your pants off to get the weapon back into the holster. Um, Kydex and leather are both great options if the leather holster is done right and stays open after the draw and covers the trigger. Um, both materials are going to wear a gun over time if you train. That's another thing that people need to understand. If you buy a gun and you train and practice your draw strokes and things like that, your gun's going to show wear. It is a tool. If it's a multi-thousand-dollar gun that you don't want to do that with, don't train with it, and don't holster it and unholster it, because both leather and Kydex is going to wear your gun. The problem with leather is grit and grime and dirt becomes embedded in the leather. So as it gets older, it will wear your gun more and more unless you really take care of it and condition it and wash it with leather soap and things like that. Kydex you can just wash in soap and water in the sink and get rid of any foreign material, because you will get stuff in there if you go to the range enough and train
we're
enough. You're
just
going to get
walking around. I
what's
found
that?
with my, or just walking around getting stuff in there, because I've
Oh
got
yeah.
in my concealed carry, you get lint and dust and everything that forms in there.
Yep.
You got to clean that out of there.
Yep. All kinds of crap. So you will get crap in your holster, and Kydex is easier to care for.
Sure. All right, we'll jump to another one here that a
And
similar
it comes
line,
in
but not
cool
really.
colors.
Yeah, that's true, and it comes. That's 100% right. Um, So Roy is asking, why are leather and Kydex holsters similar in price? Which I don't know if is universally true, but
Um, I don't know that I can really speak to that. In my case, and makers like me, benders like me, there's a lot of labor involved, especially if you're working with a gun that's not your typical. I mean, there are a lot of gun molds out there that you can use to make Kydex holsters or actual mold guns, but there are a lot of guns that are not widely sold enough that the makers will make a mold, and to have a mold made for a gun that they don't carry and cost me a lot of money if
yeah,
I have a weird gun, because I have to pay setup fees and design fees and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's hundreds of dollars to have a mold made for a gun that they don't carry already. Um, and they're both labor intensive. A good leather holster is labor intensive, and a good Kydex holster is labor intensive. So
yeah,
I wouldn't, and then the attachments that you put on a Kydex holster, belt loops and wings and claws and nuts and bolts and Chicago posts and things like that are fairly expensive. So at my cost. Um, so that's why they're my best answer.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was going to say, I don't know that your holsters are that expensive, really. When you think about like a custom leather holster can be very, very expensive. I'm in conversations right now to have a guy on here that has made. He made a lot of the holsters for like the movie Tombstone, and a couple other movies. He's made a number of movie props. He's kind of a historic holster maker, leather worker extraordinaire, and some of his holsters can get very expensive.
Very
Um,
expensive. I was going to say even like a so I one of my favorite holsters that I used when I was shooting a competition was a Galco Combat Master. Um, high-end leather holster. It was, it's one of their big holsters. Um, but it was significantly more expensive by probably by a third of what a combat type open top holster, like the one you have, other than your inside the waistband that you showed, significantly more expensive than that.
yeah.
You know, so
Oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
think Kydex might actually be cheaper typically than a good quality leather holster. And if you put tooling into it, with decorations and flourishes into a leather
Yeah.
holster, they get into the hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Easy.
Yeah.
So here's a good one from Jose. He's asking, what can a professional holster manufacturer do that a guy with a toaster oven can't do? What do you get getting from a name brand versus like, a custom maker like you?
Well, I would say that they might have had better looking holsters with the definition, but you saw the couple holsters I held up here, the definition that I get now, and that took a long time to learn, um, is so definition, which is once you get the hang of it, you can start getting definition in your holsters, which just seems to be important in the industry of leather or Kydex. The only thing a big maker can do is they can sell their holsters a little bit cheaper because they automate a lot more of the work.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
and they can put
Oh,
out a
yeah.
lot larger number of holsters. They're the guys you see in the stores. Gunfighters Inc. What's another big one? Blade Tech. Yeah, big outfits like that, they put out a lot more holsters because they automate a lot of the work that I don't automate. I don't have laser cutters. I don't have CNC machines. Um, I don't. Um, some of the big guys are doing injection molding, which if you watch any YouTube videos, and you get into an entangled gunfight, they demonstrate that those holsters can be torn off the loops or off the mounting system. And then now the bad guy has your gun. And Kydex is not injection molded. That's a softer plastic. So a lot of stuff you see on the shelves that are big guys, it's injection molded. So that's a downfall of some of those holsters, but they make them a little cheaper because they automate.
Sure. Okay. So I have a number of questions here that kind of revolve around the same thing we've kind of already talked about, but I'll ask them anyways. So the first one that's in this vein is Ethan is asking, what is important to have in a holster if you want to rely on it for carry every day? Another guy is asking, what is the best place for retention lock on a trigger guard? I think that all kind of goes in the same thing. And you had mentioned over and over again, which we should mention over and over again, that that it covers the trigger, the trigger. Let's do that. What are the things again that are important for a good holster that you can rely on?
Okay, first and foremost, it has to cover the trigger and trigger guard completely. I look at some of the old holsters I have for my revolvers, and the entire trigger assembly is 100% exposed. That's old school. But it has to cover the trigger completely. It has to retain the handgun through multitudes of conditions. It has to keep the handgun in the same position you mounted it in or put it on in, so you know where it's at, so you can train to your draw stroke. And it has to release the gun when you need it. God forbid any of us ever have to go to gun, but it happens every day in this country.
Yeah.
So when you need it, you have to be able to get it out of the holster. And there are a lot of gimmick holsters out there right now by some big manufacturers that you can't get it. You have to be able, and part of getting to the gun and getting it to come out of the holster correctly is you need to be able to have a full combat grip on the weapon when you're drawing it, or as close to it as you can possibly get. I'm going to mention one holster maker in particular. Hopefully, neither one of us gets sued, but there's a holster out there called Urban Carry where it actually rides below the waistband, and you grab onto a flap and yank it up out of your pants, and it sits in a pocket, and it
I've
literally
seen that.
flops around in the pocket because there's no retention to it whatsoever. It's just a big pocket, but it's held in place because it's inside your pant leg. Well, when it comes up, you don't get a full grip because it's just a weird thing to me that's a popular holster. It's a
That's the
deep
one that
cover
looks
holster.
cool. It looks cool in their videos, right? Because you see them like pull it up and then they get it. Like I think that's all it is, that people don't know what they need to actually have in a holster, and they see that video and they think, "Oh, that looks fast. That looks cool," and that's why it's popular.
Those guys that are in the videos that actually get it out and get it out quick, there's a lot of repetition and training that went into that. They didn't do that in a day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, yes, so it has to be, the holster has to stay where it's supposed to when it's on your body, so you know where your gun's at. It has to cover the trigger guard. It has to retain the weapon, but it has to also release the weapon when, God forbid, you have to go to gun.
Sure. And we'll answer the other question that's kind of along those veins. What's the best place for a holster to have that retention as far as the click lock? Because you had mentioned on the trigger guard, sometimes on the light, on high points. There's one light that I've got for something that's like a little Olight mini something, whatever. It's got like a little quick detach lever that sticks out from the side of the light that I've seen holsters made for, and it clicks onto that kind of thing. What have, in your experience, the best place?
So for your typical Kydex holster, without a weapon light, your retention is across the board on the trigger guard. And you see different ways that they do that. They either put a big dent in it, but it's the trigger guard is your point of retention, the front of the trigger guard. When you put a weapon light on a gun, you have to have a tunnel through the whole holster for that weapon light to clear so that that weapon's not actually entrapped in the holster, because that's another thing. You see a lot of the controls on a handgun when you make a Kydex holster, they're blocked out. That's so that, because if you say a 1911 has a prominent slide release. If you mold a Kydex holster and that slide release will cause the gun to become entrapped in the Kydex. You can't get it out out of the holster, so you block that piece out. You cover it up. You make on the holster I showed, there's a couple different places where things were blocked out. Safeties get blocked out, things like that, so that the actual weapon doesn't get entrapped. So you have to be careful of that.
Or you draw and your magazine comes popping out because it depressed the magazine release button.
Correct. Yep. So you block that stuff out. So on a typical Kydex holster without a weapon light, it's or a laser sometimes interferes with that also, is the trigger guard. And then if you have a light or laser, underbarrel laser, or an underbarrel weapon light, then you have to generally the retention is done on the light, on something of the light, but you have to mitigate that so that it doesn't entrap the weapon in there. And you'll know, I mean, you won't know, but the people that build the weapons know, because they've done it enough times where they mold it over something. They're like, crap, there's no draw. I can't get the gun out because I've entrapped something in the Kydex. The gun's entrapped in the holster, so you just block it out. But trigger guard or weapon light depends on which holster you're carrying. How your gun is configured.
Sure, it has to kind of track that path of it coming out of the holster.
All the way out of the holster. Yep. So you have to make tunnels or paths for those controls to clear the holster. Yep.
Sure. All right, last one I've got, another one from Ethan. He's asking, what is the biggest mistake people make with their holsters? So maybe that's the way they wear them, how they store them. What the biggest mistake you've seen people make with their holsters?
So the biggest mistake people make with their holsters is they don't buy a quality holster. A quality holster is going to cost you a minimum of $40 up to, $150, depending on how the holster is configured. But there's a number of choices you have at the box store, and you can tell they're usually made out of some flimsy material, or whatever. They're $19.99, and they will hold your gun. I have a couple of them in my own box of holsters, just full disclosure. Okay. I started out years and years and years ago buying cheap holsters because I spent, oh God, I just spent $600 on a handgun. Now I have $19 left or $20 left to buy a holster. And so you buy the first thing you can find that says it'll fit your Glock 19 or your Glock 17 or your whatever. The biggest mistake people make is buying a cheap holster. That's the biggest mistake. You have to be able to reholster your gun. If you can't reholster your gun one-handed, that's a cheap holster. So
Gotcha.
The other thing, I guess, is the biggest mistake is not training. Again,
Yeah.
You have to know, you have to get your grip down just to even draw the gun. You have to have the right grip. You have to be able to get it out and present it. Yeah, and you have to wear it in a place that you can get to it, which is, um, yeah. Don't fall for any of the gimmick holsters. There's another Kydex holster out there where it opens instead of opening at the rear where it folds, they fold it the other way so it opens at the front. And they say you
Hmm.
can get a quick point shoot, but it's inside your waistband, so you have to clear your waistband anyways. So it doesn't give you any advantage. But that's what they sell. I'm gonna draw the gun like this so I can, hip shoot.
I
You
haven't
still
seen
have to
that.
clear you
What?
still have to clear your waistband, right?
Yeah.
So you're really not gaining anything. They make everything else about the holster is fine, but the selling point is you can't rock it out of the holster because you'd still be in your pants, which
No.
is, anyways, probably skirting the line on getting us both in trouble. I mentioned one name by brand, but I won't mention any others.
No, I think that one's fair to mention because that is a fair criticism on that. Um, One of the last things I kind of wanted to talk to you about was like, and this was kind of a question that appeared a little bit, but the thickness of the material of the Kydex. Are there different options? Why do you pick the one you pick? That kind of thing.
So there are options. Most Kydex holster material starts out at 0.06 millimeters. There's 0.06, 0.08, 0.93, and it's 0.93, but we call it 0.93, 0.8, or 0.0893, which is 0.93, and 0.06, and then there's 0.125. They all have different purposes. I started out making all my holsters out of 0.06. It's easy to work with. It moves more at lower temperatures because it's
Hmm.
thinner, and it makes a decent holster. I just looked at a holster from a top manufacturer, top dollar prices, um, well known in the industry, and it's a newer holster and it's a 0.06, which is fine.
Hmm.
Really, you can
Yeah.
literally, I can take one of these holsters and put it on the ground without a weapon in it and stand on it and it won't deform. The 0.06 will deform a little bit, but as soon as you get off of it, take your, and I'm talking my full weight, won't crack or break or anything. It'll melt a little bit. You can maybe melt it a little bit, make it soft when it's sitting on your dashboard, but your gun shouldn't be sitting on your dashboard to begin with, in the sun. It will deform a little bit, but when you get back off of it, you can't tell you just stood on it. So it's a fine material. It's just it can be more prone to breakage in areas, down here, around the trigger guard. It's just a little bit thinner. 0.08 to me is a really good compromise. 0.93, you have to work with much higher temperatures. You get less definition, but it's hell bent for stout. You
Yeah.
can drive a truck over it. It's harder to work with, and 0.125 has very limited applications in what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
It's super thick. It's
What do they use
hard to
that
work
for?
with. Um, some guys use it for actual holsters, but they're some of the people that are using CNC machines and CNC routers. Um, Typically, it's used for attachment hardware, like on a chest
Oh.
rig. Um, they may make the buckle where the strap comes into the buckle and then the buckle attaches to the holster, or the pivot point attaches to the holster. They use like 0.125 for that kind of stuff. They used to do it for belt loops. We used to make our own belt loops back in the day. We had belt loop jigs, and you'd try and mold Kydex into a belt loop and drill the holes, try and get the right spacing on the holes and stuff. Now you buy this kind of stuff, this loop right off the shelf. But we used to have to mold stuff like this yourself. And that's about how thick. I don't know if you can tell how thick that is compared to the holster material, but it is significantly, let me get this up here, significantly thicker than the actual holster material. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You can see it.
Belt loops and stuff like that is what 0.125 was used for a lot. Um, and attachment hardware, different types of, yeah. Not a lot of people use it, but that's about 125 right there, and it is. I mean, it's pretty thick stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I use .08. It gives me a real good. Uh, when I held my finger up to it, it kind of gave you an idea of how thick it was. I use .08 because it gives you good thickness. It's very stout, but it's still easy to work with. You can still move it a lot. You can see there's a lot of movement. When I talk about movement, I talk about going from here down to here, um, or going over this, you know, and the blocking. You can see like all the controls. Like this is a mount. This would be for a mounting system, like you have on yours to mount that buckle or that, what is it called, a dot.
Yeah.
Yeah, to mount that, it's that. But you're moving Kydex. That's what when I say I'm moving Kydex, and there's a lot of Kydex to move. So from here, from this block for this mounting system down all the way down to the bottom of the trigger guard, that's a lot of movement in the Kydex. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
it's thicker. So that's what I talk about with movement. It's easier to get a lot of movement out of .08 than .93 or .125, and .06 is um, easy to get movement like that in the Kydex, but you can tear it at the same time. It'll
Uh,
literally tear as you're trying to mold that. So, I mean, we can go real deep in the woods with this stuff, but
all right.
the
Yeah.
basic idea is I think people are getting kind of the basic idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah. No, I think we've done it. I think we've gotten. Um, was there any points? Stay on after. We're almost here. We're past top of the hour. 11 minutes after. Stay on when we end recording. Just we'll talk after. But
Okay.
was there anything that you feel like we need to talk more about that we haven't touched on enough in this, whether it's for construction of holsters training, whatever?
Um, no, I think we probably covered this about as much as the regular guy who's looking for a holster is going to care to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Try and support your local vendor, but the
Yeah.
the big thing is if you're going to take the responsibility to carry a weapon on a daily basis, um, or even a semi-regular basis, just please go out and get some quality training, and invest in ammo that you can shoot and burn up on the range and get the reps in so that you are competent, at least a minimal level of competence that you're not going to be a danger to anybody should you ever have to, um, in the rare instance, have to go to gun, that you're not going to hurt somebody that doesn't intend to be hurt or
Yeah.
get yourself killed. Um, and understand that we're dealing with inherently dangerous objects, and I take very seriously the fact that my holsters, um, when they're actually needed, are a life and death situation. So um, every holster I make, I wear. I draw it a number of times um, to make sure that the draw is smooth and things like that. But um, it's a serious thing. Carrying a gun is a serious thing. Get a good holster. Doesn't have to be from me. Just get a good holster. Train. I can't stress that enough.
Oh, yeah. Well, Mark,
Mhm.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time on here. I think we really got into the weeds more than probably a lot of people would expect. And I hope people get a lot out of it. You are a wealth of information when it comes to this stuff, not just the making, but the context, applying use to the making of the holster. Yeah, man, I appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you having me. It was
Yeah.
an enjoyable experience. I'm glad I can get it out there to more than just a couple people. I think
Oh,
this is
yeah.
going to do that. So
Oh,
I
yeah. Very
appreciate it.
cool. Yeah. So for anybody who's interested, I'm going to have his website linked to the bottom here. And we'll catch you next time on the Trail North podcast.